Hey, my name is Caleb. I'm 26 and I work at a small woodworking shop just outside Portland, Oregon. It's one of those places tucked between a hardware store and a used tire lot where the air always smells like pine shavings and machine oil. The shop isn't much to look at: peeling gray paint, a tin roof that rattles when the wind picks up, but it's steady work. I cut sand and assemble custom pieces, tables, shelves, the occasional headboard for someone who wants something that lasts. My hands are always rough, always stained with walnut or cherry, and I like it that way. There's honesty in the grain. I live in a one-bedroom rental, a 10-minute drive from the shop, nothing fancy. The landlord's an older guy who only shows up when the rent's late, which it never is. The place has creaky hardwood floors, a kitchen barely big enough for one, and a back porch that overlooks a patch of overgrown grass. It's quiet. Most nights I come home, heat up whatever's in the fridge, and fall asleep to the sound of freight trains rumbling in the distance. That's been my life for the last 3 years, simple, predictable, and mine. Then my sister Lauren got called away for work. She's a nurse practitioner, and some hospital in Seattle needed her for a 3-month contract. No one else could take Max, her 7-year-old. Our parents passed when I was 19, dad from a heart attack, mom a year later from cancer, so it was just us. Lauren asked if I could watch him. I said yes before I even thought about it. Family's family. Max showed up with a Spider-Man backpack, a stuffed dinosaur named Rex, and more energy than any kid should have. He's small for his age, all elbows and knees, with a mop of brown hair that never stays combed. The first week was chaos. He asked a million questions, spilled milk on my couch, and insisted on sleeping with the hallway light on because monsters like the dark. But he's smart, scary smart. Reads above his grade, draws detailed pictures of spaceships, and says things that make you stop and think. Like the time he looked at my empty fridge and said, "Uncle Caleb, grown-ups forget to eat when they're sad." I wasn't sad, at least I didn't think I was. Sundays became our thing. Lauren always took Max to the park near the lake on weekends, so I kept it going. Willow Creek Park, nothing special. Just a loop around a pond, a playground with chipped paint and a couple of food carts that rotated depending on the season. We'd walk the trail feed. The duck stale bread Max insisted on bringing, and I'd let him burn off steam on the swings, while I sat on a bench and tried not to think about the pine boards waiting for me at the shop. That Sunday was like any other. The sky was overcast, the kind of gray that makes everything look softer. Max had been begging for ice cream since breakfast. I was halfway through a mental list of unfinished orders: 3 dining tables, 1 bookshelf, a custom cradle for a client who'd paid half up front when he tugged my sleeve. "Please, Uncle Caleb, just 1 scoop, chocolate chip. I'll be good all week." I sighed. The cradle could wait till Monday. "Fine, but you're walking the whole loop first." He grinned, showing the gap where his front tooth used to be, and took off running. I followed at a slower pace, hands in my pockets, watching him weave between joggers and dog walkers. The park was busy, but not crowded families, couples. A few teenagers tossing a frisbee. Normal, safe. We finished the loop and headed toward the food carts. That's when I saw it, a small white stand with a hand-painted sign that read "Emma's Ice Cream" in faded red letters. The sign was crooked, like it had been knocked askew by wind or kids. A chalkboard menu listed a dozen flavors, and behind the counter stood a woman wiping down the glass display. She looked up as we approached. Mid-30s maybe, older, hard to tell. Her hair was a warm brown with streaks of gold pulled back in a loose ponytail that let a few strands frame her face. She wore a light blue apron over a white t-shirt, the kind of practical outfit that said she'd been on her feet all day. There was a smudge of something powdered sugar maybe on her cheek. Her name tag pinned crookedly to the apron read Emma. Max pressed his nose against the glass, fogging it up. "Chocolate chip, 2 scoops. I stepped up beside him. "1 scoop, buddy, and I'll take espresso chip." It was my go-to bitter no-nonsense, like the coffee I drank at 5 a.m. before heading to the shop. Emma smiled, the kind that reached her eyes. "Coming right up." Her voice was calm, a little husky, like she'd been talking to customers all afternoon. She scooped Max's ice cream first, handing it over with a plastic spoon. "Careful, it's drippy." Max took it like it was treasure and immediately started licking. I watched Emma work efficient, no-wasted movements. She packed my cone tight, the dark flecks of espresso bean visible in the cream. When she handed it over, our fingers brushed for half a second. Nothing dramatic, just a spark of warmth against the chill of the ice cream. "That's $6.50, she said. I pulled out my wallet, fumbling with bills. Mac's mouth, already smeared with chocolate, looked up at her and said, clear as day, "You know, if you were Uncle Caleb's wife, he'd smile more." I froze. The words hung in the air like a bad joke. Heat rushed to my face. "Max!" Emma's eyes widened just for a second, but then she laughed, soft, genuine. "Kids say the darndest things." "I'm so sorry," I muttered, shoving a $10 bill across the counter. "He doesn't have a filter." She waved it off, ringing me up. "No need to apologize. Sometimes they just see things." Her gaze flicked to me, then back to Max, who was now swinging his legs from the bench outside the stand, completely unbothered. I took my change and steered Max toward the picnic table nearby. He was already halfway through his cone chocolate, dripping down his wrist. I sat across from him, trying to focus on my own ice cream, but my mind was stuck on Emma's laugh. It wasn't mocking, it was kind, like she meant it. We ate in silence for a minute. The park sounds filtered in, kids shouting, a dog barking, the distant hum of traffic. Max licked a smear of chocolate off his thumb and looked at me. "You're smiling, Uncle Caleb." I hadn't realized. My mouth was curved up just a little. I wiped it away with the back of my hand. "It's the ice cream." He grinned. "Sure." I glanced back at the stand. Emma was serving another customer, but her eyes flicked toward us for a second. Our gazes met through the glass. She didn't look away immediately. Neither did I. The next Sunday rolled around faster than I expected. I'd spent the week buried in the shop, sanding down a walnut tabletop until my arms ached, staining a set of oak chairs that had to ship out by Friday. Dust clung to my skin, and the smell of varnish followed me home every night. Max had been good mostly. He did his homework without much nagging, helped me carry groceries, and only asked about the park twice. But when Sunday morning hit, he was up before me, already in his sneakers, backpack slung over one shoulder. "Ice cream day," he announced like it was a national holiday. I rubbed sleep from my eyes, poured coffee into a travel mug, and didn't argue. Truth was, I'd been thinking about that little white stand more than I wanted to admit. Not just the espresso chip, though, that had been damn good, but the way Emma had looked at me. Like she saw past the sawdust and the tired eyes. I told myself it was nothing. Just a nice interaction. People in small towns were friendly. That was all. We parked in the same gravel lot, walked the same trail around the pond. Max fed the ducks, chased a butterfly, and by the time we looped back to the food carts, his energy was dialed up to 11. The ice cream stand was open, the crooked sign swaying in the breeze. Emma was there, same blue apron, hair tied back. She looked up as we approached, and her smile came quick, genuine, like she'd been waiting. "Back already?" she called over the counter. "I was starting to think you two were myths." Max bounced on his toes. "Chocolate chip 2 scoops this time." "1 scoop," I corrected automatically, then caught myself. "Make it 2. He's earned it." Emma raised an eyebrow, scooping with that same efficient grace. "Celebrating something?" "Just surviving the week," I said. She handed Max his cone, then started on mine, espresso chip, no hesitation, like she'd memorized it. As she packed the scoop, she glanced up. "You know, I had an extra vanilla batch this morning. Too much for the freezer. Want to try it on the house?" I opened my mouth to say no habit, really, but Max beat me to it. "Uncle Caleb likes free stuff." Emma laughed, the sound light and unforced. She slid a small cup across the counter, vanilla flecked with real bean. "No pressure, but it's good, promise." I took it, our fingers brushing again. This time I didn't pull away so fast. The vanilla was smooth, creamy, with a hint of something floral. "Not bad," I admitted. She leaned on the counter, wiping her hands on a towel. "You're a tough critic. Espresso chip guy through and through." Guilty. I took a bite of my cone, the bitterness cutting through the sweetness. Max was already halfway through his chocolate on his chin. We moved to the same picnic table as last time, the wood warm from the sun. Emma stayed busy behind the glass, but I caught her looking over once or twice. Or maybe I was the one looking. Max finished his cone and took off toward the playground, yelling something about the slide. I stayed put, alternating between the two ice creams. The vanilla was growing on me. Emma stepped out from the stand a minute later, wiping her hands on her apron. She had a small cup of her own, something pink. Mind if I join you 5-minute break? Not at all. I scooted over to make room. She sat legs crossed the apron, bunched slightly at her waist. Up close, I noticed the faint lines around her eyes, the way her hair caught the light. She smelled like sugar and waffle cones. So, she said, stirring her ice cream, you ever draw, or is it all sawdust and hammers? I chuckled. Hammers, mostly. I build tables, not art. Closest I get to drawing is sketching measurements on scrapwood. She nodded thoughtful. Same here. I bake, I scoop, I clean. But every scoop's a little different. Like quiet repair work. Fixing someone's bad day one cone at a time. I looked at her, really looked. There was something in her voice, tired maybe, but steady. Like she'd seen enough bad days to know how to handle them. You do that a lot, fix people. Ha, try to. She shrugged. Some days it works. Some days they just want their change and leave. We sat in comfortable silence for a minute, the park noise fading into the background. Max's laughter carried over from the swings. Emma finished her ice cream, licked the spoon clean. You know there's a kids' art thing tomorrow morning, right here in the park. Painting chalk the works. Max might like it. I glanced at her. You organizing it? Volunteering. The community center asked for help. I said yes before I thought about the mess. She smiled, self-deprecating. But kids don't care about mess. They just create. I pictured Max covered in paint, grinning ear to ear. He'd love it. She pulled out her phone, then hesitated. I took your number from the receipt last week. Hope that's not weird. Just thought I'd text you the details if you're interested. My pulse kicked up a notch. Not weird. Text away. She typed quickly, then tucked the phone back in her apron. Sent. No pressure, just thought you'd want to know. Her break was up. She stood brushing crumbs from her jeans. See you around, Caleb. See you. She walked back to the stand and I watched her go the sway of her ponytail, the way she moved like she belonged exactly where she was. Max ran up a minute later, breathless. Can we come back tomorrow for the painting? I ruffled his hair. Already planned on it. That night, my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. A text from an unknown number. Hey, it's Emma. Art thing starts at 10. Bring old clothes paint everywhere. See you and Max tomorrow. I stared at the screen longer than necessary, then typed back, wouldn't miss it. The next morning, Max was up at 7, bouncing off the walls. He packed a sketchbook, crayons, and a plastic dinosaur for inspiration. I threw on an old flannel and jeans I didn't mind ruining. We got to the park a little early. The grass was still damp with dew, the air cool and sharp. Emma was already there, setting up folding tables under a big oak tree. She wore a white painter's smock over her clothes sleeves, rolled up hair in a messy bun. Paint splatters dotted her arms like freckles. A dozen kids milled around parents, hovering with coffee cups. She looked up as we approached, her face lighting up. You made it. She waved us over. Max, grab a smock. We're doing watercolors first. Max dove in like he'd been born for it. I hung back, helping Emma unload supplies, buckets of water, jars of paint, stacks of paper. Our hands brushed again as we passed a tray of brushes. She didn't flinch. Neither did I. The morning flew. Kids painted rainbows, dogs, spaceships. Max's masterpiece was a blue dinosaur riding a skateboard. Emma moved between tables, kneeling to eye level, offering gentle suggestions. Try blending the colors here. See how they mix. Her voice was patient, encouraging. I watched her wipe paint from a little girl's cheek laugh when a boy accidentally painted his own arm. At one point, she handed me a brush. Your turn. Help me demo. I hesitated. I'm not. Just swirl like this. She guided my hand over a sheet of paper, her fingers light on mine. We made a messy sunset orange bleeding into purple. Her touch was warm, steady. When we finished, she held up the paper. Not bad for a wood guy. The kids clapped. I felt my face heat. Max ran over paint on his nose. Uncle Caleb painted. Can we keep it? Emma folded the paper carefully. It's yours. Cleanup was chaos, spilled water, sticky fingers, parents snapping photos. I carried buckets to the trash, Emma beside me with a roll of paper towels. As we dumped the last of the murky water, her hand brushed mine again. This time she let it linger. "Thanks for helping," she said quietly. "Having you here made everything easier." I looked at her, the paint on her cheek, the way the sun caught her eyes. "Anytime." She smiled soft and real. "See you at the stand later." Wouldn't miss it. The texts started coming in the next day, small things at first. A photo of the park at sunset with the caption, "Quiet without you two." A picture of Max's dinosaur painting taped to the inside of the stand's window, "New mascot." I'd reply with something simple, a shot of the half-finished cradle at the shop, or Max asleep on the couch with Rex the dinosaur tucked under his chin. Nothing heavy, just proof we were still there. By Wednesday, the park had become routine. I'd finish at the shop around 4, pick Max up from the after-school program, and we'd head straight to Willow Creek. Emma would spot us from the stand before we even crossed the gravel. She'd have Max's chocolate chip ready 2 scoops now without asking, and my espresso chip in a cup so I could eat it while walking. We'd sit at the same weathered picnic table, Max drawing on napkins, Emma leaning out the serving window to talk between customers. One afternoon, the sky threatened rain. The park emptied early, leaving only the hum of distant traffic and the drip of water from the oak leaves. Emma closed the stand 15 minutes ahead of schedule, flipped the sign to back at 10, and joined us on the bench. Max was coloring a spaceship with 6 wings. She watched him for a minute, then pulled a clean napkin from her apron and started sketching quick, confident lines, a tiny ice cream cone wearing a cape. Max looked up. "That's you." Emma laughed. "Super Scooper saves the world one cone at a time." I watched her draw the way her tongue touched the corner of her lip when she concentrated. She slid the napkin across the table. "For your fridge gallery." That night, I taped it next to Max's stick figure family. The fridge was starting to look like a museum. The messages kept coming. "Emma, long line today. Thought of you when a guy ordered espresso chip and complained it was too bitter. Me tell him to grow up." Emma already did. He left a bad review. Then one Thursday, Max came home from school with a folded sheet of construction paper. He shoved it at me like it was top secret. "Don't peek till I say." I waited. He counted to 3, then unfolded it. 3 stick figures under a blue sky. The tall one had a tool belt, me. The small one had spiky hair and a dinosaur, Max. The middle one had long hair and an apron, Emma. They were holding hands. At the top in purple crayon, "Family needs a dog." I stared longer than I meant to. Max watched my face. "You like it? Yeah, buddy. It's perfect." He beamed, then ran to grab tape. I stuck it dead center on the fridge door, right at eye level. When I stepped back, the 3 drawings looked like a timeline. First the dinosaur, then Super Scooper, now this. I took a photo and sent it to Emma without thinking. Me, new edition. Emma, "Wow, he's got an eye." Me, "He's got a heart." Emma, "So do you." I didn't reply right away. I stood in the kitchen, thumb hovering over the screen, feeling something shift inside my chest like a board finally locking into place. Friday, the park was busier. A birthday party had rented the pavilion, kids in party hats screaming over a piñata. Emma was slammed. I helped carry trays of waffle cones from her cooler to the stand. Max handed out napkins like a pro. When the rush died, she leaned out the window, sweat on her forehead, and mouthed, "Thank you." I nodded, wiped a streak of chocolate from her cheek with my thumb without thinking. She froze for half a second, then smiled small private. That night, Max fell asleep on the couch mid-cartoon. I carried him to bed, pulled the blanket up to his chin. When I came back to the kitchen, my phone lit up. Emma can't sleep. Thinking about napkins and fridges? Me, same. Emma, tomorrow. After you close the stand, me, I'll bring dinner. Saturday, I picked up burgers from the diner on the edge of town, the kind with the greasy paper that soaks through. Max insisted on bringing his sketchbook. We got to the park just as the sun dipped behind the trees, turning the lake gold. Emma had already closed the stand dark, but she was sitting on the picnic table, legs swinging hair loose for once. She hopped down when she saw us. Perfect timing. Max ran ahead, climbed onto the bench, and opened his sketchbook like a waiter presenting a menu. I drew dinner. Emma peered over his shoulder. a burger with eyes and a smiley face. She laughed the sound carrying across the empty grass. I set the food down suddenly aware of how quiet it was. No customers, no kids, just the three of us and the crickets starting up. We ate on the table, paper wrappers rustling. Max talked a mile a minute about school, about how his teacher said his spaceship drawing was imaginative. Emma listened like every word mattered. When he ran out of steam, he yawned, laid his head on my leg, and was out in under a minute. Emma and I sat in the hush. The sky had gone lavender. She picked at a fry, then looked at me. "He's lucky to have you, I'm the lucky one." I meant it. She was quiet for a long beat. "You know, I opened this stand after everything. Thought if I could make one person's day sweeter, it would count for something. Didn't expect two people to walk in and change the math." I didn't know what to say, so I said the truth. I didn't expect to look forward to Sundays. She smiled soft. "Me neither." Max shifted in his sleep, mumbling about dogs. Emma reached over, brushed a curl from his forehead. Her hand lingered near mine on the table. I turned my palm up. She slipped her fingers through mine, no hesitation this time. Her skin was cool from the ice cream freezer, but her grip was warm. We didn't kiss. Didn't need to. The lake reflected the last of the light and the air smelled like cut grass and waffle cones. Max's breathing evened out. Emma rested her head just barely against my shoulder. "I should get him home," I said eventually. "I know." She didn't move. I squeezed her hand. "Tomorrow, tomorrow," she whispered. I carried Max to the truck, buckled him in. Emma walked us to the driver's side, hands in her apron pockets. Before I climbed in, she reached up, touched my cheek quick like she was afraid I'd vanish. "Drive safe, Caleb." I nodded. "See you at 10. She watched us pull away, a small figure under the park lights, until the trees swallowed her silhouette. That night, I added another napkin sketch to the fridge, this one from Emma, the three of us at the picnic table. Max asleep, me and her with linked hands. Underneath in her neat handwriting, "Slow Sundays are the best." The next afternoon, the park felt different. The weekend crowd had thinned to a handful of joggers and an old man feeding pigeons. I pulled into the gravel lot a little after 4, the truck's engine ticking as it cooled. Max was at a friend's house for a playdate. Lauren had arranged it weeks ago, so for the first time in months, I was alone. No small voice asking for juice, no dinosaur under my arm. Just the quiet hum of the radio and the weight of knowing Emma would be waiting. She was wiping down the counter when I walked up the stand's awning, casting a long shadow across the grass. Her hair was down today, loose waves catching the late sun, and she'd traded the apron for a faded denim shirt sleeves rolled to the elbows. She looked up, saw me, and the cloth stilled in her hand. "No Max?" she asked, a tease in her voice. "Playdate hostage situation. I'm on my own." She smiled softer than usual. "First time in forever feels like it." I leaned against the counter, thought I'd return the favor. Brought dinner. I held up a paper bag from the diner, grease already seeping through. "Burgers, extra pickles, just like you said you liked." Her eyes lit. "You remembered. I pay attention." She locked the stand, flipped the sign to closed, and we walked to the picnic table. The wood was warm from the day's heat. She sat across from me, knees almost touching mine under the table. We unpacked the food in comfortable silence, fries spilling onto the wrapper between us. Halfway through, she licked salt from her thumb and looked at me, really looked. "You know I used to hate Sundays." I paused, burger halfway to my mouth. Why too quiet? After the divorce, the house felt hollow. I'd open the shop, scoop ice cream, smile at strangers, then go home to an empty couch and a TV that talked to itself. She picked at a fry. Then you two showed up. And suddenly, Sundays had noise. Good noise. I set my burger down. "Max does that, fills the room without trying. It's not just Max." Her voice was low, steady. "It's you too. The way you listen, the way you show up even when you're tired." "I see it." I swallowed. The air between us felt thicker, like the moment before a saw bites into wood when everything's still, but you know it's about to change. "I see you too," I said. "The way you make kids feel like their dinosaur painting is a masterpiece. The way you remember what people order without writing it down. You're steady. In a way I didn't know I needed." She looked down at her hands, then back up. I was married for 8 years, thought I had it figured out, house dogged the whole script. Then one day he said he didn't want it anymore, just like that. I kept the dog, lost the script. She gave a small, sad smile, opened the stand to have something that was mine, something that couldn't leave. I reached across the table, covered her hand with mine. Her fingers were cool, calloused from scooping all day. I get leaving, I said. Dad died when I was 19. Heart attack out of nowhere. Mom followed a year later. Cancer. Lauren and I, we just kept moving. Work bills don't stop. Then Max showed up and I realized I'd been holding my breath for 7 years. She turned her hand palm up, laced our fingers. We're a pair, aren't we? Two people who got good at surviving. But not at living, I finished. She nodded. The sun dipped lower, painting the lake orange. A breeze rustled the oak leaves overhead. We didn't move. Didn't need to. Eventually she spoke again, quieter. I don't know what this is, Caleb. I'm 39. You're 26. I come with a failed marriage and a stand that barely breaks even. You come with a nephew and a life that's about to change when your sister comes back. But when you're here, she squeezed my hand. I stopped counting the cracks. I thought of Max's drawing on the fridge, the stick figures holding hands. I stopped counting too. We sat like that until the light faded, the park emptying around us. She leaned forward, rested her forehead against mine for a second, just breathing. No kiss, not yet. Just the weight of knowing we were on the same page. Max's playdate ended earlier than expected. Lauren texted that she'd pick him up from the friend's house and drop him at home. I walked Emma to her car, an old Subaru wagon parked behind the stand. She opened the back door, tossed her apron inside, then turned to me. Tomorrow, she asked. Tomorrow, I said. She hesitated, then stepped closer, rose on her toes, and pressed her lips to my cheek, soft, quick like a promise. Drive safe. I watched her drive away, taillights disappearing down the park road. My cheek still tingled. When I got home, Max was already in pajamas, sprawled on the couch with Rex. He looked up, eyes bright. Did you kiss her? I choked on air. What Cody at school said when grown-ups like each other, they kiss. Did you? I ruffled his hair. Not yet, buddy. He considered this, then nodded solemnly. Soon. I drew a dog for us. It's brown, with spots. He shoved a crumpled paper at me. Sure enough, 4 stick figures, now the new one with floppy ears. I taped it to the fridge right next to the others. The gallery was growing. That night I couldn't sleep. I stood in the kitchen staring at the drawings under the fridge light. Max's voice echoed in my head, his blunt honesty cutting through the noise. I grabbed my phone. Me? You awake, Emma? Yeah. Can't stop thinking about fries and sunsets? Me same. Also thinking about tomorrow. Emma, me too. Bring Max. We'll need a dog expert. I smiled in the dark. The next afternoon, Max was back to full volume, dragging his sketchbook to the park like it was a mission. Emma had the stand open, but slow. She waved us over, handed Max a cone before he even asked. We sat at the table, Max between us, coloring a dog with a superhero cape. Emma leaned over, whispered, so only I could hear, I like this. Us, the noise. I whispered back, me too. Max looked up, caught us mid-whisper, and grinned. Told you, kissing soon. Emma laughed, her hand finding mine under the table. I didn't pull away. The weeks blurred after that. Lauren's contract got extended another month, then another. Max stayed. The fridge gallery kept growing, dogs with capes, spaceships, made of ice cream cones, a stick figure, Emma wearing a crown. I stopped counting Sundays. They just happened like breathing. One Saturday in early fall, the air turned crisp, the kind that smells like wood smoke and turning leaves. Emma closed the stand at 3 earlier than usual. She texted me, meet me at the lake bench. Bring Max in a jacket. I didn't ask why, I just grabbed his dinosaur hoodie and drove. She was already there, sitting on the same weathered bench where Max had once declared his need for a dog. A picnic blanket was spread on the grass, a wicker basket open beside it. Sandwich's thermos of cocoa, a bag of marshmallows. Max spotted it and bolted. Picnic, he yelled, skidding to a stop. Are we camping? Emma laughed. Not quite, but close. We ate as the sun sank the lake, turning molten gold. Max roasted marshmallows over a tiny camp stove. Emma had brought his face smeared with chocolate and triumph. When he finally yawned and curled up on the blanket with Rex, the sky had gone deep indigo stars pricking through one by one. Emma and I sat shoulder to shoulder, the blanket warm beneath us. Max's breathing evened out, soft snores mixing with the lap of water against the dock. She rested her head on my shoulder, no hesitation now. I used to think happiness was loud, she said quietly. Big gestures, big promises. But this… She gestured at the sleeping boy, the dying embers, the quiet lake. This is better. I wrapped an arm around her. I used to think it was complicated. Turns out it's just showing up. She tilted her face up. You always do. I kissed her then. Not rushed, not dramatic. Just right. Her lips tasted like cocoa and marshmallow, warm and sweet. When we pulled apart, Max stirred, mumbled something about dogs, and settled again. Emma smiled against my neck. He's going to demand that dog soon. Let him, I said. We'll need one to complete the picture. She laughed, the sound muffled against my jacket. We stayed like that until the fire burned low, until Max was fully out, until the park lights flickered on across the water. I carried him to the truck, buckled him in. Emma folded the blanket, packed the basket, her movement slow, deliberate, like she didn't want the night to end. On the drive home, she sat in the passenger seat, hand on my thigh. Max snored in the back. The radio played low, some old song about open roads. I glanced at her. You know, Lauren comes back in 3 weeks. I know. Her thumb traced circles on my jeans. We'll figure it out. We will. She looked out the window, then back at me. I love you, Caleb. Didn't plan on it. But I do. The words settled in my chest, solid as the oak tables I built. I love you too. No fireworks, no swelling music. Just the hum of the engine, Max's soft breathing, and the quiet certainty that this was it. 3 weeks later, Lauren came home. She hugged Max so hard he squeaked, then looked at me at the fridge covered in drawings, at Emma standing in the kitchen doorway with a tray of cookies. Her eyes widened, then softened. You kept him busy, she said. Something like that, I replied. That night, after Max was asleep in his own bed for the first time in months, Emma and I stood on my back porch. The air was cold, our breath visible. She slipped her hand into mine. Still not leaving, she asked. Not a chance. She smiled, leaned into me. Good. Because I ordered a dog bed. Brown, with spots. I laughed, pulled her close. Inside the fridge, light glowed through the window, illuminating the gallery of napkins and crayons. 3 stick figures, now 4 with a dog. A family messy and real. I didn't plan to stay, it was just ice cream. But sometimes the smallest scoops fill the biggest cracks. And that was enough.